Hello guys, this is Space Obvious Vlogs. As you can see, I'm outside. It's a bit dreary, I realize. I'm going to talk about a conversation I had with my mother about ghosts, which is what started the conversation. She was talking to my brother about ghosts and spirits, which is okay. I've watched some paranormal TV shows. I find that to be fucking stupid. But, mostly harmless. If you want to believe that your house is haunted, fine. I'm not personally convinced that there are such things as ghosts and spirits, but at the end of the day, whether they exist or not, honestly, is pretty irrelevant to me, because ghosts and spirits don't really have anything to do with Christianity. If they exist, they exist. If they don't, they don't. Makes no real difference to me. Okay? So, I go in, and I'm like, okay, if ghosts exist, and spirits exist, and all these other things exist, why? What's the utility? And if the brain gets damaged and the personality is changed, what happens? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you suffer a massive brain injury, a catastrophic brain injury, well, you are now fundamentally a completely different person. Does that affect the soul? If it does affect the soul, how does it affect the soul? How can it affect the soul? The soul, by every definition I've ever heard, is a non-physical entity. It can't be affected. The most I can come up with seems to be that people believe that the soul is what allows us to have consciousness. Okay, that implies that animals have souls too. I guess we could say that those are lesser souls. If we use like Skyrim, you have like lesser souls, and then just like normal souls, and then greater souls. Okay? So what, like an ant is a lesser soul, and what, a dog might be like a normal soul, and humans are like greater souls, or more potent souls. I'm not quite sure how that works. If a personality is altered, does that body get a second soul? And if it does, and that second soul isn't baptized, what happens to that individual? Do they go to hell for a portion of time? They get tortured for like 100 years? And then they go up to heaven? How does that work? I'm trying to make sense of this shit, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to understand. Trying to make sense of this. You believe this thing, I'm trying to work out the kinks. What are the rules? What are the conditions? If X happens, what happens? Does the soul get affected? If it does get affected, how is it affected? What happens if, you have something that separates the hemispheres of the brain, where you have one side that is, let's say, Christian, and one side that is Hindu? What happens? What afterlife do they go to? What gods do they stand before? Do they go to heaven? Do they go to whatever it is that the Hindus believe? As far as I know, they might even have, like, they might just get reborn, I don't know. And if that's the case, do they, like, ascend to a higher being or to a lesser being? Or are they just reborn as another human? And when they die, how is this determined? You know, is there like a point system? Every action is given a certain amount of points, and depending on how many points you have amassed, you get to enjoy more privileges. Like, for example, if I die right now as an atheist, do I go to heaven and I live in like a fucking trailer park, or, you know, or is it, you know, like, oh, well, you get to go to heaven, but you can't go past this level. You're an atheist, you can go into heaven, but you can only access, like, levels 11 to 7. Like, you can access all that, but you can't go past level 7. You know, something like that, you know, like there's like a winged city, and, you know, the bottom levels are like the most basic, you know, it's like, it's decent, you know, it's not terrible, you have a place, but, like, it's a trailer park, you know, it's a nice trailer park, but it's a trailer park. And then you get, like, fucking District 1, and it's fucking, like, massive castles and shit, you know? Like, how does that work? You know? Because I've talked to her about it, and I don't think she understands. Like, she says that you have to believe in God. Okay, I can get behind that, sure. That makes some amount of sense. In order to go to the afterlife, you have to believe in the corresponding deity. I can get behind that 100%. Okay, is that the only criteria? She seems to think that that's all. Okay, then Adolf Hitler and the SS and child rapists and all those, pedophiles and mass murderers that found Jesus, they're in heaven. I don't know, man, that don't seem like it's a good enough criteria. Okay? So, what else? Is living a good and virtuous atheistic life gonna get me into heaven? If I give to the needy, if I talk to someone on the internet and help them, you know, maybe I'm on YouTube or whatever, and I am perusing the comments of a YouTube video. And here is a YouTuber, here's a comment that obviously is a cry for help. If I reach out to this individual, right, and we have a nice back and forth of maybe about 12, 13 messages over the course of a few days, and by the end of it, they have gone from they were thinking about committing termination to they're not going to do that, and then I get hit by a bus. Does any of that matter? Does any of that have any sort of effect at all? If the answer is no, well, then I don't see what the fucking point here is. Because while I can get behind the idea that we're being tested and all that, if our actions don't have any bearing whatsoever, then what are we doing? If what we're doing here does not have any effect whatsoever, and we're going to go up or down regardless of what we do, then, you know, what's the fucking point? If we're being tested, what's the criteria? What is he looking for? You know, I'm not an atheist because I'm just stubborn and blah, blah, blah. I'm an atheist because I'm hearing a whole mess of claims. And I'm looking at these claims, and I'm studying them, and trying to understand them, and I'm looking into them, and I'm, dissecting them, and analyzing them, I'm fielding questions from people all the time. And I'm like, there's nothing that I have been presented that once analyzed leads me to the conclusion that there is anything more than people desperately attempting to cope with the fear of death by imagining a reality in which they avoid death, in which they cheat death by means of this spiritual entity that transcends the self and exists in some higher plane. It sounds very fucking 1960s hippy dippy crap. That's what it sounds like to me. We don't die, man. We simply become something else. And don't get me wrong, I see the appeal. I do. But if we live forever, then our lives can't, by definition, have inherent value. They can't. How can they? The reason why people, praise the likes of Alexander the Great is because when he was in his 20s, he was doing things that even people in their 30s wouldn't have been doing. He made one of the largest continuous empires in the history of humanity. He had an empire that spanned from Greece to at least eastern India. And every major landmass from Greece to India was his empire. He founded dozens of cities. He beat thousands and thousands of men. And he explored lands that at that point would have been mythical. He saw creatures that would have seemed like fantasy creatures. And he not only saw them, he killed them. And he did all of that before he was even, 32? I don't remember when he died. But it was like, he was young. He was probably about my age when he died. Okay? That's pretty goddamn amazing. Imagine if you were 25 years old and you did even one of those things. Your life would be awesome. People would be writing books about you. And he was doing that and more. But how would we view him if he was alive right now? And he did all these things thousands of years ago. Maybe he'd be a great military tactician. Maybe he'd be respected in that sense. But until he dies, until we have a decisive end where we can now quantify his life in totality, his life, in a meaningful sense, has no meaning because we can't quantify it. We can't, look at it in its totality and be like, okay, he did these great things here and here and here. Right? If you live forever, things stop mattering. They stop having significance. Because how can they have significance? The reason why having a Ferrari is a status symbol is because you have it and the other people don't. But what happens if everyone in town has a Ferrari? Why should I care about your Ferrari? I have a Ferrari. I have 2 Ferraris. What makes yours so damn special? You know, if you live in a nice big house, that's a status symbol. But if everyone has a nice big house, why should I care about yours? You know? If you have a heated swimming pool, that's cool. If everyone has a heated swimming pool, why won't I just go to your neighbors? Why? Why would I go to you? Your next door neighbor has a heated swimming pool, and it's closer to my house. Why don't I just go there? That's the issue. Is heaven is you have everything you will ever want, and it's just there. It's just given to you. And everyone has that. So why should I care that you have it? I have that. Homeless Joe has that. You know, Billy Bob from 2 streets down has that. Why should I care that you have it? Everyone has it. Everyone lives in mansions. Everyone has a Ferrari. Everyone has a heated swimming pool. Everyone has a bowling alley. Why should I care about yours? You know? If you can have everything you will ever want, whenever the hell you want, as often as you want, then does it matter? Is it special? No, it's not. And I don't mean to be rude or sound dismissive, but why would I want that? Why would anyone want that? That's a serious fucking question. Think about it. If heaven is as you people believe it is, why would I want that? Why would you want that? What's the appeal? What's the draw? Oh, well, you get to see your family. Okay. But at some point, wouldn't that, at some point, you'd be having family that you've never even seen before. That you'd have absolutely no attachments to. Like, are you really going to be that attached to your great-great-great-great-great-grandson? Really? Are you really going to be attached to your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather? No. You might get attached to your grandfather and your great-grandfather and maybe even your great-great-grandfather. But, at some point, we're talking about people in your family that are so far removed from you that they may as well not be family at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, the family, but they're family in, paper, Like, they're technical family. Like, you have relations, there's a connection, but it's like 2 or 3 branches removed, and it's like, they would have died before you were even born. And they would have lived a complete life. Would you honestly have any real connection to someone who lived in all the 1800s? Really? If you had a relative that, lived in, 1756 and died in 1812, right? And you could talk to them. Are you really going to have anything in similar? No, not really. Your smartphone would be like magic to them. The idea that you could circumnavigate the earth in 90 minutes would have blown their minds. I'm not saying that I wouldn't be interested in that. I certainly would be very interested in that. But at some point, I'm going to have done everything I've would have ever wanted to do. I would have seen everything I would have ever wanted to see. And then what? What do I do then? You know? At some point, you run out of experiences that you would want to have. I mean, I'm not particularly interested in, categorizing every butterfly, you know what I'm saying? At some point, you're going to run out of shit that you're interested in. And so at some point, you're going to start doing things that you're not interested in, simply to have something to do. And then you're going to eventually get bored of that, and you're going to do something even more monotonous. Like, okay, I'm now going to pluck a single blade of grass. Every day, one blade of grass. Until you have plucked every blade of grass. And then you go to leaves of trees. And you do that once a day. One leaf a day. For one tree. And you do that for every tree. And then, okay, you say, I will now take this, and I will take 1 milliliter of water. I will take it out of the oceans, and the rivers, and the creeks, and the streams, and the puddles. And I will put it in this ginormous jar. This cartoonishly massive fucking jar. And I'm going to put this 1 milliliter amount of water into this massive goddamn jar. Every single day. Until I have filled the jar. And the oceans are gone. And the lakes are gone. And the creeks and the rivers and the streams and the puddles are gone. And now, okay, now what? Well, you now have trees that have no leaves. I guess we can now cut down the trees. And so you cut down one tree. Once a day. Every day. Until you have cut down trillions of trees. Now what do you do? You know? Oh, well, now that the planet is now bone dry, I will take these tweezers, and I will pluck 1 grain of sand, and I will put it into a jar, until I have plucked every grain of sand from every desert and every beach on Earth. Okay, now what are you going to do? You know? You can do this infinitely. An infinite number of times. This is going to take you quintillions of years, I'm sure. Billions, if at least billions of years. To do. Because there's a lot of goddamn grains of sand and, molecules of water and leaves on trees. It's going to take you a good long fucking while. And then what are you going to do? After you cut down all the trees and all that, are you going to plant 1 tree? Wait the, 20, 50, 100 years it would take to get to maturity? Only to then restart that process again? Like, what? How long are you going to do this? Where you do the same thing over and 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 over. Ad nauseum. Infinitely. Forever. I don't think people really appreciate just how long this is. And if there was a way to opt out, I'd be fine with that. 100% I'd be fine with that. But if I have to live forever against my will, then that sounds like a fate worse than death. Because at least with death, there's an end There's a point at which you stop suffering. You know? North Korea is awful, but at least you will eventually fucking die. You know? When North Korea is better than heaven, you know, maybe work on your fucking PR a bit. You know what I'm saying? Maybe, goddamn. You know, North Korea is awful, but heaven's worse. Anyway, see you guys next time.